Team Pointy Star here with yours truly, Vio. We're on the next episode of our This Deck is Underplayed. This week we're going to be using windups. I've used this deck. This was the deck I came back into the game with, and yeah. First off, we go against a Cloudian. We start out with 3 traps and a double summon, so I do set 4 end. The Magician Shark combo is really good, and I can't believe I actually managed to draw this first turn. And then they summon their Cloudian monster, and then I realized that I'm facing Cloudians, so it's not that impressive. But, I mean, look at the combos you can do. Magician, Shark, Pappy, then Rat for Shark, and then you can go pretty much into instant rank. Yeah. The 3, 4, and 5 is an actual pretty common occurrence with this deck, because you can use the factory to give you the extra monster you need instead of that Call the Haunted. And so this is actually a pretty good combo, with that Tyrus being able to pop a card after his attack. Tyrus is probably my favorite rank 5. Volcasaurus is second, and, you know, Adrius is an okay card. He actually ends up scooping after realizing he doesn't have enough Cloudian tokens to do anything. The next duel is against Dark Worlds. I actually drew pretty decently. I got my Magician, or my Rabbit and my Veiler, so I can stop them and hopefully sit for a turn until I can get another card for my Shark to work off of. And he starts doing stuff. Here's a personal bit of advice. Never use Pot of Duality in Dark Worlds, because it actually shuts yourself down. They ended up losing this duel because he ended up using the Pot of Duality instead of anything else. My Magician I happened to get top deck with my Magician, Shark, Rat for Alucard. Alucard was actually get rid of that back row because I was actually quite scared of what it could be. I'm using the Rat, I brought back the Warrior. Warrior's such a good card. In fact, I run him at 2 because Direwolf can pop cards. It was a good thing I did because the 2 back row were both Mirror Force. I use Alucard as a staple in most decks because I think it's a really good card. He goes Pot of Duality, gets his Snow, and then he realizes he can't special summon Grapha and ends up scooping at the summon of Bear, I believe it was. Yeah, he ended up scooping. He didn't really have anything. The next duel is against a Fire King deck. This duel I don't actually believe I won. I just wanted to show you the recovery power of this deck. The opponent does simple, standard kind of Fire King-like play, and not really thinking, I assumed that destroying a card face down would make it not get its effect. So I went off anyways. I got my Shark and went into the Pappy, flipped up his turned my guy to attack position, brought back the Magician, specialed the Shark, and summoned a Rabbit, exceeding into Alucard. Alucard destroys it, and his effect still activates. He does have this Earthbound Immortal card, which when it's destroyed by a card effect, destroy all other cards on the field, which really hurt. I took another 18. My next turn, I actually end up pulling off a small play. Rat for Magician, double summon Rabbit, banish the Rat, I believe I did. And then I just go off right there because I wanted to hopefully get some good plays to make up for losing my whole field. The only reason why I'm showing you this is the massive, just explosive power of this deck and how well it can recover. Right there, sending that monster to the grave instead of destroying it. Being able to attack with 2 monsters is just amazing. Your opponent is just left almost awestruck. I mean, they're not the best XCs, but being able to pull out 3 is good. The problem with us facing this deck is the Garunix. He pulls out Garunix, he gets a free destruction of it, and then he gets to resummon this thing to destroy and do all this other fancy stuff. So my monsters end up destroyed. I end up setting my bluff, but it doesn't really do much. I don't think it really matters to him. He circles, does extra damage, and I happen to top deck perfectly, getting my wind-up Rat, I believe? Oh, Dark Hole, sorry. My Call the Haunted brings back my Rat. Rat goes for the Warrior, and Warrior boosts for the Shark Knight. Shark Knight is a really good card, and I take that. I believe I might have made a comeback because he doesn't have his Grunix anymore, but little do I know he has both Rekindling and Wolfbark in his hand, so there's not really much I can do here. He goes Shark Knight for my Shark Knight, which happens all the time, and that's game. I lost that duel, but I just wanted to show you how well I could recover. I recovered not only once, but a second time. Just the second time was not as strong, it was just the fact that I could. This was an actually interesting hand, but it was also an even more interesting deck I was facing. It looked like it was supposed to be some sort of stall machine deck, and he had some pretty interesting cards he used, but nothing that really hurt this deck. I'm only showing you the duels that actually went on for a while, because a lot of times people would scoop when I went Magician Shark. They would just scoop and end, because it's hard for them to fight that combo when you get out so many XCs that all have varying effects. So, he was sort of a misplay. I ended up going into the Utopia, but then realizing I couldn't detach for the rat. Luckily, he did declare an attack against it, allowing me to send a card for Utopia and do cards, but I decided not to use that. He did safe zone on my Alucard, but I guess that's just him not being the smartest. I can't attack directly with Alucard anymore, but it's not a big deal. Or if it was on his side of the field, he could not attack me. I'm sorry, I forgot about that ruling. Since it was his safe zone, my Alucard cannot attack me directly because of the ruling. Alucard destroys the middle, MST destroys the swords, and then I just kind of poke for game here. Yeah, the next duel was against some sort of strange anti-meta deck. I wasn't 100% certain what it was. I think it was a Chaos Dragon deck after looking at it later. It was just a very interesting interpretation of it. It looked more like a kid and had just like started into the game again and tried to build some sort of dragon deck, to be honest. My bear was not the most effective. I didn't get my tanky to destroy it and stuff, but that's alright. I end up dimensional prisoning his card. He dark holes for my bear, and I decide to waste my compulse to get it back, simply because I don't have other cards in my hand. I summon the bear and attack. I end up getting my card. And because of that Gravekeeper Servant, I keep milling cards, so I actually get a little worried about that later and make a certain play based off of that. He passes because he can't do anything. I summon the Magician, double summon for Rabbit. Rabbit banishes itself to bring out the Shark, and Shark goes into the Gusto Emerald because I'm assuming that I'm going to mill two more monsters, but I only ended up milling one. So I was unable to use the effect of that Degusto Emerald. His turn, he draws the Magical Cylinder, but can't really do much of anything else. I summon the Rabbit, Xyz into Alucard to pop that new back row, which was the Magical Cylinder, attack, and that's game. That was that duel. The next duel was against a Scrap deck, which I was kind of excited to see a Scrap deck play against me because I hadn't faced one in a while, but this was a strange, like, Chaos Scraps. That Vylon Prism is actually a really good idea, pulling out Scrap Dragon, giving him an instant target until you can get more monsters out to protect it. I didn't bring back the one dude, so he didn't have a way to Xyz or anything, but he still brings out that Shining Bright Dragon. He is kind of making strange plays with that dragon and like almost wasting the effect at times, but right here when I summon my rat, activate Shark, he activates his effect to keep it from being destroyed. So I go into Invoker for Warrior, Xyz into the Shark Knight, and I steal it. If you don't know, Shark Knight is supposed to be the this really cool new card from the set. What its effect is, detach 2 materials from it's 2 level 4s, detach 2 materials, target a special summon monster, and stick it underneath his card as an XYZ material. It works against almost every single deck. He actually scoops when I effect failure that Goblindberg because he can't really do anything. He's kind of not the happiest of campers. The next was against a Galaxy deck. This duel was actually a really crazy duel. I did end up, I believe, making a strange play later because I was a little nervous on stuff. So, we'll just see how it goes. I don't always go for the Rabbit when I go for Tanky because I like the opponent to not know what deck I'm playing. But I just wanted to get my hand as fast as possible. I did waste a Torrential on his Maiden because I assumed he was just going to sit on that. But he did have super big plays he could pull out in the next couple of turns. He pulled out that really big dude, the Felgrand Knight. He is crazy. He stops effects from activating, or can stop himself from dying. I start going off in my plays, pull out the rat, and then I go into Direwolf to destroy itself, hoping that that was the target. But the cost is detaching in this card, not destroying. So he negates it. I just attack over token. I end. It's weird because he actually leaves me with that Direwolf for a while. He ends up bouncing it off using his Galaxy monster. IMST his Reborn, his yeah, it's for Galaxy. Galaxy is a pretty interesting deck. They have issues. He gives his monster some extra attack. I summon the rat, special the Magician, and then I try to special the Magician, but he stops. So I get myself the Shark anyways. I go for Warrior, special the Shark, go into Tyrus, I believe. No, it was Volcasaurus, because I needed to do damage, because that really big monster was actually quite terrifying. He's out of materials for his Felgrand, but he summons that to pull out this really strange monster. It negates everyone's effects, and he can attack with both of them. yeah, I'm left with just the direwolf. On my turn, I activate the factory, summon the rat, and he actually forfeits because I can pull off really big plays again. He's actually scared of what I could do with this deck. Well, that's pretty much all about that duel. The next duel was against this Harvey deck. I was actually pretty excited to face a Harvey deck too because I just did that deck last couple weeks, or a week or two ago. I open with a factory rabbit to search for the shark and so I can do really nice combos. I MST that and I get rid of that monster because I know that this deck's really bad to face. Here's where I'm really confused. I activate the factory rabbit for a magician and another shark, I believe. I summon the magician, go for shark, and he has got in his back row an Icarus attack, a fiendish chain, and a wing blast. For some reason he chooses not to use the fiendish chain until way later, though I do understand a little bit. I pull out the yellow card and he actually just uses the fiendish chain on the yellow card so his attack doesn't go through. He was hoping to hit a bigger XYZ, but all he ended up doing was kind of failing. I leave the magician and warrior out. That way I can use them hopefully next turn and maybe even go into a rank 5 using that rat for the shark and then do other combos. But I was, yeah, they actually ended up scooping when they drew Zephyros because they couldn't use the Harvey Channeler's effect. The next duel was against Infernities. Infernities are a really good deck this format. They've got some really crazy plays they can pull off. I actually got my rabbit for shark first turn, and I went into Invoker for warrior, double summon into another warrior for Tyrus because I really like that first turn play of Tyrus. Tyrus can attack and then deal 26 and then pop a card and all this stuff. It's just, yeah, really good. He sets his monster knowing I'm probably going to attack with the Invoker first. It was not the best idea. I probably could have attacked with the other guy first and then I would have popped 2 cards. This part was sad because I ended up popping his Infernity Break as opposed to the Infernity Barrier, which he had back row 2. He goes Launcher. Launcher is a really good card because he can discard one. He summons the other because he has no other guys in his hand and he starts pulling out plays. Being able to go that many monsters at once, and I knew that monster was really bad if I didn't Valor it, so I had to stop that as soon as possible, and he did Infernity Break my card effect. Looking like I have nothing, drawing Torrential was an okay move. I set the rabbit in case he can go OTK, but because he doesn't, I banish the rabbit so I can keep it for next turn just in case. The rabbit comes back during my standby phase, and I draw into a factory. I activate the factory, banish the rabbit, get another rabbit to summon the rabbit to activate the Torrential. Torrential destroys everything, and the rabbit saves itself once again. It's up to my opponent to do some great top decking. He top decks a lure. He draws into a monster but has to banish it, and his 1-for-1 does nothing. My rat brings back a rabbit, and he ends up scooping there. Yeah, so the next duel was with a slightly different version of the deck where I had actually been like testing out different cards, I believe. I was facing this ninja deck, and it was actually quite terrifying to be honest. His staying in Grandmaster Hanzo going for that trap, he sets 5, meaning if I don't get lucky here. That anti-spell fragrance, if I had not been able to get that MST off, I would not have been able to win this duel, because Dark Sea Morgue is a really good card, making it so I couldn't set cards, and that anti-spell fragrance would made it so I could not use my spells, obviously. I end up getting lucky, going into the Shark Knight to try and take it, but my Forbidden Lance, since he no longer has that spell fragrance, protects it. I take it and I attack. He uses Mirror Force even though only one of my cards will die. And it's MST targeting my face down warning. I don't really care. I get my monster back to full attack, and he has like the extra life, quote unquote. He sets, and actually this is the funny part, is he actually scoops on his next turn realizing he did not have another really good target for that card that he was hoping to go into, since he failed to do really good things last turn. The next turn, her duel was against this like Royal Decree thing. It was a very strange deck. It looked like it was built around just taking one monster and making it really big, but because of my 2 back row, he was actually quite scared because I kept getting rid of his Call the Haunted, or his Royal Decrees. His inability to stop my trap card back row made him actually scoop upon his next turn. He could have gotten one really big monster out, but the Compulse would just make him go -5 like instantly because of it. On his turn, he does draw his Armory Arm thing, but he just scoops because he can't do anything there. Yeah. So, The next duel was also with this modified version of the deck, I believe, where I was facing the strangest X-Saber deck I ever seen, because he ran so much hate in his deck. He went from like a 40 card decent deck up to like 50 something cards just because he was running like 3 Soul Takers, like 2 Hammer Shots, and like 2 Fissures. The whole deck seemed built around just him being able to do certain things like, you know, pull out his strange monsters and stopping me from getting any. It was like a trap trick only with spells. I do summon the rat and get back the warrior, go for a rank 4 XYZ Utopia, just because it's a really solid play in my opinion. I really like the warriors because of the rats. And the Pot of Dichotomy is such a good card. I'm really wanting to run in here because, I mean, everything's different, so you can get back cards so quick. And you really need to be able to get those cards back. I summoned Bear, and he warnings the Bear, which I thought was kind of strange since it was only a single monster. But he just doesn't want me doing anything. I summon the rat, get back the warrior once again, I believe. No, I get back rat. I was going to just go for Leviathan here, I believe, because I thought it was a safer play, and he actually ends up scooping. My rat for rat wouldn't have really done much, and his fissure would have kind of hurt, but, I mean, whatever floats his boat. One of the last duels I did was against this Chaos Zombie, which at first I thought was kind of interesting what they were doing. I thought it was Lightsworn or something, because they just summon an end. But that Sing and Face, or that Sense Zombie World stuff was kind of making me think a little differently. The zombie decks are really cool. I end up setting 3 after his Valor, and he tries to do some plays. He MSTs Lilas for another, and I get lucky because I can bottomless the Mizuki, which would have hurt so bad in a couple turns. He keeps milling. I go Factory Rabbit for Shark, I believe, soon. Yeah, I search for another Rabbit, I believe, and then I use Rabbit for Factory so I can get my Shark before he could draw like an MST or something to stop me. He does summon Zombie Master to get back his Pyramid Turtle. He attacks. I go Magician for Shark on my next turn, I believe, because he summons that card. I don't know why he didn't like use it at the time, and because I have to get rid of that before battle phase, it wasn't that difficult. I kind of went straight into the whatchamacallit, instead of trying to pull some other plays. I just went straight for Shark Knight to take it, because that's just not a play you want to deal with. And then I go Giga Brilliant for the first time. This is the first time in like a year I've gone into that card. And boost up my monsters, attack. He goes Book of Life, banishing the Magician. Remember that. He banishes the Wind-Up Magician. He summons all these cards and just does all this stuff. Looking at my hand, there was really no reason to have banished my Magician. He does do some really good combos, and this is where I get really nervous, except for the fact that he can't attack with that Chaos Sorcerer, so I have really good odds here. Summon the Rabbit, special the Shark. Get a search for a Shark to level 3, Xyz into Leviair, bring back the Magician, Shark. Right there. This is the strangest combo I've done in a long time. I go into Pappy, go to attack, to defense, bring back the Shark. That's not strange. The strange fact was the fact that I knew that none of my monsters could really destroy his monsters that well, but my Forbidden Lance makes it so I can do plays. I attack and I attack. His turn, he draws the Goblin Zombie. He turns out the defense, summons it in attack mode. He wanted to set it or Xyz, but he couldn't figure out what he was going to do. The fact that he summoned it means that he was going to try and do damage or something, but then he realized he couldn't, ended up scooping there. That was pretty much the whole deck, and I'll move on to the to the list. So here's the deck list, just kind of going fast. The first cards are Bear. Bear's a really good card for the deck. It lets you search for your Tenku, it searches for the Rabbit, which is just a really good place. The next card is Shark. Shark is the best card in the deck because it works with every other wind-up in the deck. Warrior is next. Warrior works with the Invoker and lets you bring back the Rat, or use Rat for him to go level 4s, or rank 4, sorry, which is really, really good for the deck. Moving on, the next cards in the deck would be the Magician. Magician's a really good card. She works with everything. You just pretty much use anything except for herself, and she can get her effect off, which is really good. I have Wind Up Rabbit and Wind Up Rat. Both are really good because they work with lots of the cards. Rabbit lets bounce everything, and Rat brings back everything, and it almost all works together perfectly. I use Effect Veiler in one of the builds. The other builds, I was thinking about using it and stuff, and it really helps. It stops your opponent. I used Max C in one of the builds. Double Summon was there. Double Summon I use just because sometimes your combo stops and you need to keep going, and so that just lets you get that next piece onto the field to start going plays. That helps with the Factory, so you can go, let's say you have a Shark and a Rabbit in your hand, banish Rabbit and stuff. I have one Dark Hole, one Pot of Duality, just because, I mean, the Pot of Duality just ended up in there. I tried taking it out, I tried running 3 and all this stuff, but at the end of the list I just had 1. I run 3 MST just because back row really hurts this deck. it's very bad for you. The next card in the deck is actually the Book of Moon. Book of Moon really kind of helps this deck because the Book of Moon is just, it's really important to flip your opponent's cards face down, along with the 3 Tenki. 3 Tenki searches for the rabbit and the bear, just as I was saying earlier. The next card in the deck is actually 3 Wind Up Factory. Factory is one of the better cards because it works with almost all the monsters, except for Magician most of the time. And it lets you get your searches out to get the sharks and the rats when you need them, and the Magician if you want to go combos, and the rabbits. You don't really ever search for Warrior unless you have like a shark in your hand or something, and you already used your rats and your like Magician. It's just like a last minute play. But the fact you can go rank 5s with him is really good. Onto the trap lineup, I run 1 Bottomless, 1 Torrential, 1 Compulse, 1 Warning like I did in the other deck, 2 Mirror Force, 2 Deep Prison. You can mix this trap lineup as much as you want up. It's not that important that it's in this exact way. It's just when I try building a new deck, I try to keep to the 15, 15, 10. This deck I ended up going 14, 16, 10, being the 14 spells, 16 monsters, 10 traps. But it's just the way things ended up being. And instead of 2 Hysteric Parties or Paloozas or something like that, I ended up using 2 Call the Haunted, because that brings back your rat for Warrior, and you've got yourself plays right there. Onto the extra, I run 1 Tyrus, 1 Volcasaurus. I could be running more rank 5s, but I really wanted those rank 3s because the rat and the rabbit and the shark just go into rank 3s like there's no tomorrow. More rank 4s, we've got ourselves a Utopia, a Pappy, a Black Ship, the Shark Knight, which is a really good card. I honestly think you should run it in most every deck. There are decks where certain cards are better, and in this deck I actually use the Shark Knight and the Pappy. There are times when you want to flip your opponent's monster face down with Maze Stroke, which is why I put it in the side in case if you have if you wanted to use that. I'm just kind of showing you other cards you can use. And the next card's Direwolf, because it works with your rat. You can go rat for shark, rat to defense to bring back another like shark or a warriors or the warrior or something. Xyz into rank 4, and then you can pop the rat with the Direwolf and being able to continue attack with the Direwolf, so that way you can go off in your plays and still pop one of their cards. Next card, the Gusto Emerald. Sometimes you're late game with this deck and you have issues because you run out of windups because the whole deck searches for itself in ways, so you kind of have to work around that. That card just kind of recycles them for you. We have the obvious and mandatory Cowboy because it's just such a good card. The rank 3s, these are rank 3s I'm sticking with because they're really good. Leviathan, because Leviathan's a beater. You don't need Acid Golem unless you really want it. It shuts you down. People go, you're not going to use it if you are in that bad of a position, but there are some times when you're going to need to run over a really big monster, and you'll go into Acid Golem thinking that's the best way to do it, but then you'll be stuck for the next couple of turns getting destroyed by him. Next card, Giga Brilliant. I've always seen Giga Brilliant in this deck. I never really use it because I never need to, but as you saw in these duels, there were times when it was kind of important that I pulled that out. I run Alucard because Alucard, in my opinion, is just a staple XYZ. Being able to just pop a card like that, boom, is so good. One Leviair, and because you banish cards with the rabbit, you don't have to banish them, but it lets you continue your plays. The 1 Invoker to bring out the Warrior, that's why I run 2, is so that way you're not wasting a deck in your or a card in your extra deck. And the last card is Zen Mains. There is that other card, the Mega Equipped Engineer, which I do try to use in Madolches, but Zen Mains is so much better for this deck because first you get a search off. Another one, it's like you can continue to summon. You can go rat for the rabbit, let's say, then you get your search. Go into the rat or go into the Zen Mains, you can continue your plays with the shark. It's just Zen Mains, its ability to pop one of your opponent's cards by itself dying is really good. So it allows you to go him and the rabbit on the field, torrential, and then he survives, rabbit banishes itself, all your opponent's cards die, he's still there, and then end phase you get to pop something. I mean, really good plays. Cards that you can use in this deck that I personally haven't been using, the Maxis, I tried using that for a little bit. I tried using a rank up build with that 4,000 attack point monster, but I just found myself going into rank 3s almost just as much as I went into rank 4s, and rank 5s almost even more, even though I only had 2. Other cards you can try running is that Maze Stroke if you want to start flipping your opponent's cards face down, and if you just want higher defense for sitting there on the field. And then the Pot of Duality, you could run more Pot of Dualities. I did run Forbidden Lance, as you saw, in a slightly different build, where I believe I took out, what did I take out? I think I took out one of the MSTs and one of the Tenkis for 2, but I'm not 100% sure. I just really wanted to try out certain cards in this deck. I just tried to show you some of the better duels, and there were some losses, but I rate this deck really well. I'd suggest you go and try it out. Any opinions on the deck, just go right ahead and tell me in the description below, and yeah.